Nobody expected a quiet suburban morning to turn into a viral neighborhood drama. But when a fearless German Shepherd named Titan faced off against the HOA president, everything changed in seconds. It was one of those perfect spring mornings, the kind that made the whole street feel alive. The trees along Maple Lane swayed gently in the breeze, birds sang in the distance, and the smell of freshly cut grass floated through the air. Most families were enjoying their quiet weekend, sipping coffee on porches or tending to gardens. But there was one house where peace was never guaranteed. That was the Parker family's home, a cozy, single-story house with a white picket fence, a small flower garden, and a well-kept yard. Inside that fence lived Titan, their loyal German Shepherd. Titan wasn't just a pet. He was a guardian. With his shiny black and tan coat, pointed ears always alert, and deep amber eyes that seemed to see everything, he was the silent protector of the Parkers' home. Neighbors admired him, children loved him, but there was one person who hated him more than anyone else: the HOA president, Mrs. Crawford. Mrs. Crawford was everything you'd imagine a Karen to be, always dressed in crisp clothes, sunglasses perched on her head, and a permanent frown etched on her face. She prided herself on keeping Maple Lane perfect, and had no problem handing out fines for the smallest violations. If a trash bin wasn't perfectly placed, she'd leave a note. If a lawn wasn't mowed just right, she'd snap a photo and send a warning email. And to her, Titan was nothing but a nuisance. The Parkers had received countless complaints about him, his barking, his size, even the way he patrolled the fence line. But Titan wasn't aggressive, he was protective. He knew when a stranger didn't belong, and he wasn't afraid to make it known. That morning, Titan sat near the edge of the yard, watching the street. His ears twitched at every sound: the rumble of a distant car, the laughter of kids riding bikes, the rustle of leaves. But then, something unusual caught his attention. It was Mrs. Crawford, walking slowly down the street, clipboard in hand, her expression tight with determination. She stopped in front of the Parker house, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the yard. Titan's body tensed and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Something about her posture was different today. She wasn't just walking by, she was inspecting. For weeks, she'd been leaving snide comments about the Parkers' property, claiming the fence was too high and the landscaping out of HOA guidelines. The family had tried to ignore her constant complaints, but this time felt different. Mrs. Crawford wasn't carrying just her clipboard. She had a measuring tape, too. Titan rose to his feet, moving closer to the fence. His muscles rippled under his glossy coat, and his eyes locked on her every movement. She stepped closer, muttering under her breath as she wrote something down. Then, without hesitation, she unlatched the gate. Titan's bark exploded through the calm morning air like thunder. The deep, powerful sound startled nearby birds and sent a shockwave through the street. Neighbors peeked out their windows as Mrs. Crawford froze, her hand still on the gate. Titan didn't lunge, but he positioned, himself firmly between her and the Parkers' front door. His tail was stiff, his body low, and his ears pinned forward in warning. He wasn't attacking, he was guarding. Mrs. Crawford's face paled, but she stepped inside anyway, determined to inspect the yard. That was her mistake. The moment her foot crossed the boundary, Titan's bark grew louder, deeper, more commanding. It was no longer just a warning, it was a demand. The entire neighborhood could hear it. Mrs. Crawford stumbled backward, her eyes wide with panic as Titan moved closer, every step slow and deliberate. He didn't touch her, but he didn't need to. His presence was enough to make her realize she was no longer in control. Across the street, neighbors gathered on porches, phones in hand. Some recorded the scene, while others whispered to each other, amused at the sight of the HOA president, the self-proclaimed queen of Maple Lane, being escorted out of someone's yard by a dog she had labeled dangerous. Mrs. Crawford scrambled out of the gate, slamming it shut behind her. Titan stopped immediately, standing tall and proud inside his yard. His job was done, but Mrs. Crawford wasn't finished. Her face turned red with embarrassment as she shouted something no one could quite hear. She stormed down the street, phone in hand, already dialing someone. By now, nearly half the neighborhood was watching. The Parkers, who had been inside, finally stepped out to see what was going on. They called Titan back, and he obediently sat at their side, calm as ever. But the look in Mrs. Crawford's eyes was dangerous. She wasn't just angry, she was humiliated, and that humiliation would turn into something bigger, much bigger. Later, that day, a storm began brewing on the Maple Lane neighborhood group chat. Mrs. Crawford posted a long rant about dangerous animals and unfit homeowners. She claimed Titan was a threat to the neighborhood, spinning the story to make herself the victim. What she didn't realize was that half the neighbors had already uploaded videos of the entire scene. The footage told a very different story. The clips. Titan was calm, controlled, and clearly just protecting his home. Mrs. Crawford, on the other hand, was seen trespassing, fumbling with the gate, and backing away in panic. Within hours, her post was flooded with comments. Not in support of her, but in defense of Titan. The HOA president's attempt to paint herself as the hero was backfiring spectacularly, and this was just the beginning. The sun was barely up the next morning when Maple Lane's group chat was already buzzing. Notifications lit up phones across the neighborhood like fireworks. Screens were filled with video clips, each showing the same scene. Mrs. Crawford, the HOA president, caught on camera trespassing into the Parkers' yard, panicking as Titan, the towering German shepherd with his shiny black and tan coat, pointed ears, and piercing amber eyes, calmly defended his home. The neighborhood had never been this alive. People who usually kept to themselves were now sharing memes, jokes, and screenshots of Mrs. Crawford's frantic posts. The self-proclaimed guardian of HOA rules had turned into the laughingstock of Maple Lane overnight. Some neighbors even slowed down their morning walks to take a second look at the Parker house. Titan sat proudly by the gate, watching over his territory like a king surveying his castle. Cars slowed as drivers chuckled, pointing him out to their passengers. The once quiet German shepherd was now the most famous dog in the neighborhood. But fame came with tension. Mrs. Crawford wasn't someone who handled embarrassment well. She doubled down on her accusations, claiming Titan was a vicious beast and insisting that the Parkers face fines. Her anger grew when she realized that no one was supporting her. Every time she posted a complaint, neighbors responded with videos proving Titan hadn't even stepped outside the yard. Even worse for her, some neighbors had already shared the clips on social media, and they spread faster than wildfire. By midday, the video had reached thousands of views outside Maple Lane. People from other neighborhoods commented, laughing at the HOA president's dramatic reaction. Some praised Titan's discipline, pointing out how calm and controlled he was despite being provoked. Others criticized Mrs. Crawford's behavior, calling her a classic Karen. The Parkers, though uncomfortable with the attention, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Their loyal German shepherd was finally getting the recognition he deserved. He wasn't just a pet, he was a protector. By the second day, things had escalated. Mrs. Crawford was furious at being the subject of online jokes. She decided to take action, calling a surprise HOA meeting. Flyers appeared in mailboxes, urging everyone to attend a serious discussion about neighborhood safety. But when the meeting day came, only a fraction of residents showed up. Those who did attend were greeted by a stiff-looking Mrs. Crawford, clutching her clipboard with shaking hands. She spoke in a sharp, defensive tone, painting herself as the victim of a misunderstood incident. She claimed Titan had been aggressive and that she had entered the yard for safety checks, but her words fell flat. Several neighbors raised their phones and played the viral clips aloud. The sound of Titan's deep, commanding bark filled the HOA hall, followed by gasps and laughter as the footage clearly showed Mrs. Crawford fumbling and retreating. Her face turned redder with each passing second. The HOA board, which had long tolerated her strictness, finally spoke up. One member calmly reminded her that trespassing was a violation of both neighborhood policy and basic property law. Another gently pointed out that Titan was clearly behaving as a well-trained guard dog. The meeting ended in awkward silence, with Mrs. Crawford storming out, her reputation in ruins. Back at the Parker home, Titan lay peacefully on the porch, unaware of just how much chaos he had caused. The Parkers gave him extra treats and scratches behind the ears, grateful for his loyalty. But the story didn't end there. Within a week, the video of Titan had been shared on local news pages. Headlines popped up online: HOA president confronted by family dog after trespassing, and German Shepherd becomes neighborhood hero. Comments poured in from dog lovers, HOA critics, and amused viewers. Some even called for Titan to get an award for his bravery. Maple Lane transformed after that. Neighbors who had once stayed quiet about Mrs. Crawford's antics began to speak up, sharing their own experiences of her overreach. Slowly, she lost her power over the community. Her fines stopped being taken seriously, and her complaints were met with eye rolls instead of fear. Meanwhile, Titan became a legend. Children waved at him on their way to school, calling him the hero dog. Joggers often stopped by to snap pictures with him. Even delivery drivers, once cautious, greeted him with a smile. The Parkers' once quiet home became a symbol of standing up to unfair treatment. Ironically, Mrs. Crawford became reclusive, avoiding public appearances. The once proud HOA president now walked quickly past Titan's yard, head down, clutching her clipboard tightly but saying nothing. For Titan, life went back to normal. Long naps in the sun, evening walks with his family, and quiet patrols along the fence line. But there was a new air about him, a regal presence that made people pause. He was more than a pet. He was a reminder that sometimes the most loyal guardians come with 4 legs, a wagging tail, and a bark that speaks louder than words. Weeks later, a small package arrived at the Parkers' doorstep. Inside was a certificate from a local animal organization awarding Titan Neighborhood Hero of the Month. The family framed it and hung it in their living room, smiling at the thought that their beloved dog had become more than just their protector. He had become a legend. And so, Maple Lane changed forever. The HOA's reign of strict control loosened. Neighbors grew closer, and Titan remained the quiet, watchful sentinel of the block. His amber eyes glimmered with loyalty every time he looked at his family, knowing he had done his job well. Mrs. Crawford's shadow still lingered, but her influence was gone. All it took was one bold German Shepherd to remind an entire neighborhood what respect truly meant.